This happened back in January, during one of those rare weekends where everything lined up. No work, no responsibilities, and a forecast that promised clear skies after a week of heavy snow. I decided to do a solo hike up near Mount Baker, on a trail I'd done a couple of times before in warmer months. I knew it was risky, but I had snow gear, crampons, emergency supplies, and maybe a little overconfidence. I left around 5 in the morning. By the time I got to the trailhead, the sun was just beginning to push against the clouds, turning everything this soft, silvery blue. The parking lot was empty. My car was the only one. I remember stepping out and being hit by that complete, eerie silence. No wind, no birds, not even the usual creaking of trees. Just me, the snow, and this quiet that felt too heavy for nature. It wasn't peaceful. It felt like the woods were holding their breath, and I hadn't even started walking yet. About 30 minutes in, I was already second-guessing myself. The snow was deeper than I expected, up past my knees in some spots, and the trail markers were half buried or just gone. I had my GPS, but even that started acting weird. The screen would flicker, then freeze for seconds at a time before catching up. Still, I pushed forward. The forest looked surreal, blanketed in white with branches drooping low, like everything was bowing under the weight of something invisible. I passed a tree that had claw marks, 3 long, uneven gouges in the bark, dark and frozen. I tried to laugh it off as a bear from weeks ago, but something about it felt off. The spacing, the angles, it didn't look like any animal I knew. And then I noticed a second set of marks on another tree, about 20 feet ahead, almost identical. That's when I realized they were lined up with the trail, almost like a path, like something else had been walking this way before me. I stopped and listened, suddenly aware of how completely still the forest had become. No birds, no rustling wind, just the soft crunch of snow beneath my boots and the distant echo of my own breath. I turned in a slow circle, trying to spot anything out of place. The trees were bare and skeletal, but something ahead didn't sit right. One of the trunks looked slightly off, narrower, too straight, like it had been placed there instead of grown. I squinted into the blur of white and brown. For a second, I saw a tall figure standing still between 2 trees. I blinked, and it was gone. My heart kicked. Maybe it was a trick of the light or my tired eyes, but I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. I tried to keep moving, but the woods felt tighter now. The marked trees began showing up more frequently. 3 sharp gouges, always in 3s, carved low, then again higher up, like something was climbing or tracking. I picked up my pace, but the silence felt heavier with every step. The snowfall began to thicken, and with it came a strange, almost oppressive hush, like the woods were holding their breath. I pulled my jacket tighter and checked my compass, still headed south, still on track, but something felt skewed. The trail should have curved by now, but it hadn't. I glanced behind me, hoping to see the indentation of my boot prints leading back the way I came, but they were gone, swallowed by the falling snow. A low snap echoed through the forest. I froze, instinctively holding my breath. Another snap, closer, not a tree creaking, something stepping, deliberately. I called out, "Hello?" Nothing. The quiet returned, but it wasn't natural anymore. It felt like waiting, watching. I started moving again, faster now, not caring about the path. I needed to get somewhere open. I needed to see the sky. But all I could see were endless trees and the snow falling faster, erasing everything behind me. After 20 more minutes of trudging, I spotted a narrow wooden shelter ahead, a trail hut, half buried in snow, its roof sagging under the weight. Relief washed over me. I pushed the warped door open and stepped inside, stomping snow off my boots. The air was stale but windless, a temporary refuge. I lit my flashlight and swept it across the room. Broken bench, half-rotted sleeping mat, walls etched with the usual graffiti, but something was off. Near the corner, I saw a fresh message scratched deep into the wood, not carved with a pocket knife, more like gouged in with a jagged rock. It read, "Don't follow the whistling." My breath caught. Whistling? I hadn't heard anything. Then, as if summoned by the words, a long, low note echoed faintly through the trees outside. My skin prickled. It didn't sound like wind. It sounded like someone exhaling a tune just out of sight. I killed my flashlight and crouched low in the shelter, heart hammering. The whistling came again, slow, tuneless, and too deliberate to be the wind. It circled the hut, stopping, starting, like someone pacing. Snow muffled everything. but I could hear the faint crunch of footsteps. Human, careful. I clutched my pocket knife, absurdly aware of how useless it felt. My breath came in short bursts, fogging in the cold air. Then silence, total. A stillness that made my ears strain for any sound, any movement. I peeked through a crack in the boards, just white, pine trunks, falling snow. But then on the far tree line something shifted. A figure, no coat, no hat. Bare-chested and pale, standing in the snow like it meant nothing. I blinked, gone, just trees. But I was sure it had been there. I didn't imagine it. I told myself I needed rest, just a break, but I didn't believe that anymore. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that figure, bare skin against snow, unmoving, watching. I stayed curled in the corner until the sky lightened to a dull gray. Morning, if you could call it that. I forced myself out, packed quickly, and continued down the trail without eating. I told myself I just needed to reach the next ranger hut, but after maybe an hour, I realized something awful. I'd passed that same crooked pine before. I recognized the way its trunk split like a tuning fork. I should have been heading downhill, but I wasn't. My footprints were the only ones in the snow circling. I was walking in loops, my compass spun slowly, twitching. I stared at it until my fingers numbed, then pocketed it and kept walking. It had to be the cold messing with my head. That's what I kept telling myself. But when I glanced over my shoulder, I saw it again, far off, at the edge of the trees, walking in step with me. I froze. My breath came out in pale clouds, fast and shallow, heart thundering in my chest. The figure was still there, partially hidden behind a stand of spruce no more than 40 yards away. Still naked, still deathly quiet, but now its head had tilted slightly to the side, like a dog listening for something. I opened my mouth to yell, to ask what it wanted, or just scream, but no sound came out. My throat locked. I stepped back. It mirrored me, one slow step in perfect sync. That broke something in me. I turned and started walking fast, nearly jogging. Snow kicked up underfoot as I moved, crunching in sync with another set of footsteps that weren't mine. I didn't dare look over my shoulder. Something primal told me not to. The trees thickened, swallowing the trail behind me, and the clouds above hung low and gray. My GPS was still dead. No sun, no signal, just cold, breath, and the sound of it pacing behind me, matching my every move. I didn't stop until my lungs burned and my legs trembled, stumbling into a small clearing surrounded by dark pines. I crouched beside a fallen log, gasping quietly, trying to listen past the roar of my pulse. Nothing. No crunching footsteps, no movement, just the wind whispering over the snow like a voice too soft to understand. I stayed still for what felt like hours, barely breathing. When I finally dared to lift my head, I saw no figure, no tracks in the clearing except mine. But then I noticed something worse. There were no birds, no rabbit prints, no scat. The woods were utterly lifeless, as if something had drained them of motion. I stood slowly, legs numb, and turned toward where I thought the trail should be. A shape shifted behind the trees, tall, impossibly thin, now just watching. I took a step backward, and it took one forward, silent as falling snow. That was when I ran, not thinking, just running. I burst through the tree line just as the first hint of dawn scraped across the horizon, staining the sky with pale silver. My car was there, half buried in snow, windshield frosted over, but real. I fumbled the keys from my pack, hands shaking so hard I dropped them twice. Behind me, the woods remained still. No crunching snow, no breathing, no figure. But I didn't trust the silence anymore. I jumped inside, slammed the door, locked it. The heater coughed to life and I stared at the tree line, waiting for something to emerge. Nothing ever did. But even as I drove away, tires slipping on the icy road, I never felt like I left that forest. Not really. Something followed me out, and some nights I hear it in the quiet, long fingers tapping my window, breath fogging the glass. I shouldn't have gone hiking alone in the snow. I think it chooses people like me, people no one would miss for a few days. The snow had been falling for hours, a silent, suffocating curtain that erased everything beyond the narrow road. Miles from the nearest town, my car finally wheezed to a stop. Dead battery, no signal, and nothing but an ocean of white in every direction. I wrapped my coat tighter, cursed under my breath, and stepped out. The cold bit instantly, sharp and invasive, like it had teeth. The map said there was a ranger outpost 2 miles east, but east didn't mean anything out here. Every direction looked identical under the thick, swirling flakes. I glanced back at the car, already half swallowed by snowdrifts, just a useless shell. I had no choice. I started walking, boots crunching with each uncertain step. Wind howled between the trees ahead, tall black spires in the whiteness. Then I stopped, listened. My heartbeat stuttered. There, behind me, unmistakable, the soft crunch of footsteps. But I hadn't moved. I spun around fast, heart hammering, but the snowfall was too thick to see more than a few feet behind me. Nothing moved. No shadow, no figure, just the quiet hiss of snow piling up. I held my breath, listening. The wind surged, then died. Silence. I told myself it was an echo, or snow shifting, but something in my gut twisted. I turned back and kept walking, faster now. My legs were stiff, the cold biting into my knees. My breath came in ragged clouds. Every time I stopped, I heard it again. Crunches behind me, timed with my own, always delayed by a second. I tried calling out, "Hello?" My voice vanished into the storm, no reply. I strained my ears. Nothing. Then, another step, closer. I wasn't alone out here, not anymore. But whoever followed me didn't rush. They were patient. That terrified me more than anything. They weren't lost in the snow. They were waiting for me to stop. The trees grew thicker as I pushed deeper into the woods, their black trunks looming like sentinels. Snow clung to their branches, muffling every sound except the crunch beneath my boots and his. I no longer doubted someone was following. The steps were real, steady, measured. I tried changing my pace, stopping abruptly. The second set would halt just after mine, always lagging behind by a beat. I ducked behind a tree, heart racing, and waited. Wind rattled frozen limbs. Nothing. No movement. I waited longer, breath caught in my throat. Then, crunch. Just once, closer than before. I didn't look. I bolted, limbs frozen, lungs burning. I ran without direction, branches slapping my face, snow dragging at my legs. I didn't stop until I tripped and slammed into something hard and wooden, an old shack, half buried and forgotten. I didn't care what it was. I clawed at the door, slipped inside, and slammed it shut behind me. Inside, the shack was dark and colder than outside. The wind slipped through cracks in the walls, carrying snow that collected in little heaps on the warped floorboards. I fumbled for my flashlight, hands trembling, and clicked it on. A dim beam swept across the room, broken shelves, an old cot, a collapsed stove, just 4 walls and a door that barely stayed shut. I pressed my back against it, trying to quiet my breathing. Minutes passed. Then, I heard it, the soft crunch of snow just outside, followed by the creak of the porch. My blood ran cold. A shadow shifted beneath the doorframe, blocking the faint light from outside. Whoever it was, they were standing right there, not knocking, not speaking, just waiting. I clutched the flashlight like a weapon and stepped backward. A slow drag of fingers scraped across the outside of the wall, moving from one end of the shack to the other. Then, silence. I didn't move for what felt like hours. Every instinct screamed to stay quiet, not to breathe too loud or shift my weight. Outside, the wind howled, but beneath it, I kept hearing something else, barely there. A shuffle, a breath. Footsteps circling, slow and deliberate, as if whoever it was wanted me to know they hadn't left. Then, without warning, a sharp knock hit the door. Just once, not loud, not angry, just a soft, measured tap. I froze. Another knock followed, then silence. My flashlight flickered. I slapped it, desperate, and the beam returned just as a new sound began. Nails or something sharp, scratching along the wooden door. Not clawing to get in, tracing, feeling. The scraping moved higher, to the latch, as if testing its strength. I backed deeper into the room, heart pounding so loud I swore it echoed. Then the handle turned, slowly, just once. But it didn't open, not yet. I stared at the handle, waiting for it to turn again, but it stayed still. The scratching had stopped too. I wasn't sure which was worse, the noise or the silence that followed. I moved to the corner of the shack, flashlight beam dancing along the warped walls, searching for anything I could use to block the door. There was nothing, just rotted wood and rusted metal. I braced a broken chair under the knob, even though I knew it wouldn't hold. Then I noticed something else, faint markings on the inside of the shack's walls, etched deep, maybe with a knife. Tallies. dozens of them, in uneven rows. Beneath them, a message: "He stays out if you stay in." My breath caught. I shined the light across the floor and saw scratch marks near the door. From the inside, deep ones. Someone else had been trapped in here before me, and they had fought hard not to let whatever was outside get in. I sat with my back pressed to the far wall, flashlight aimed at the door, breath fogging in the cold. My fingers had gone numb, but I didn't dare move. The forest outside was too quiet now. No footsteps, no wind, just an unnatural stillness that made the silence feel alive. I kept staring at the carved message, "He stays out if you stay in." My thoughts spiraled. Who wrote it? Who was he? And why did this place feel more like a cage than a shelter? Then from just outside I heard something faint, a whisper maybe, or a hum, low and guttural, like someone speaking beneath layers of earth. The shack vibrated slightly, boards groaning under some unseen pressure. My flashlight flickered. When it steadied, I noticed new scratches on the far wall, fresh ones, long deliberate gouges that hadn't been there before. I hadn't heard the door open, hadn't seen anything move. But I was no longer alone. I could feel it. The air grew heavier, as if the shack itself were sinking into the snow. I backed into the corner, flashlight trembling in my hand. Its beam caught something in the far end of the room, movement, just for a second. I aimed the light, heart pounding, and saw a figure crouched low in the shadows. No sound, no breathing, just a shape, pale and thin like it had been carved from frost and bone. Its eyes reflected the light, not blinking. I couldn't speak, couldn't scream. I don't know how long we stared at each other before it moved, slowly rising to its full height, head tilting like a curious animal. It didn't rush me, didn't threaten. It simply stood there, half hidden in the dark, as if waiting for something. I turned the flashlight off. Total darkness. My ears rang with silence, and in that moment I finally understood. The shack didn't keep it out, it kept me in. I don't know how long I sat there in the dark, knees drawn to my chest, heart thudding like a drum. The figure never moved again, but I knew it hadn't gone. I could feel it, like cold breath brushing the back of my neck. I tried turning the flashlight back on, but it was dead now, useless in my shaking hands. I whispered to myself, nonsense things, anything to drown out the silence pressing in around me. Then I remembered the door. I crawled toward it slowly, feeling along the floor, careful not to make a sound. My fingers touched the broken chair still wedged beneath the handle. I paused, listening. No footsteps, no breathing, just a deep, unnatural stillness. With one slow motion, I moved the chair aside. The door creaked under the pressure of snow, then opened an inch. I hesitated. Behind me, I heard a sharp inhale, like something waking up. Then it whispered my name. I didn't look back. I threw the door open and ran into the blizzard, snow swallowing me instantly. The cold hit like knives, but I didn't stop. I didn't care where I went, only that I moved. Behind me, the shack groaned, and I heard footsteps, light, unhurried, following again. I tripped, crawled, stumbled through the white void until a faint orange glow appeared in the distance. A ranger station? A cabin? I didn't care. I forced myself toward it, lungs on fire, legs numb. I reached the door and pounded until it opened. A man pulled me inside, stunned by my frozen face and torn clothes. "You're lucky," he said. "Nobody makes it through nights like this." I turned to look out the window, but the forest was gone. No trees, no shack, just empty snow. I didn't say anything. I just sat there, warming my hands, trying not to listen. Because somewhere out there, it was still whispering my name.